Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Star Wars channel. I'm grateful you've drifted here tonight to this quiet corner of the galaxy where shadows soften, stars grow gentle, and ancient stories hum like distant comets passing through the void. Maybe your day has been long, or your thoughts have been restless, wandering like ships without a star map. But now, you're safe. You're here, and this is your time to slow down. Take a moment. Let your breath fall into an easy rhythm, the way a starship settles into hyperspace. Let your shoulders soften like dust on a forgotten world, and allow the glow of the Force to wrap around you, steady, warm, and endlessly patient. Tonight, we cross into the darker corridors of myth. But don't worry. Here, even the shadows are soft, because this is a bedtime journey through the nights of Ren, wanderers of darkness, keepers of lost teachings, and followers of a flame untouched by Jedi or Sith. Their story is not one of roaring battles or thundering chaos, but of quiet masks, hidden philosophies, and the gentle murmur of power drifting through forgotten regions of space. Think of this as a dream walk through history, a calm exploration of figures wrapped in mystery, moving like drifting shadows beneath starlit skies. We'll wander with them through myth, through ruin, through the echoes of choices made in silence. And with each fact, we'll drift deeper into a restful understanding of who these knights were and why their legends linger like embers in the dark. So close your eyes and let the hush of the galaxy guide you. May the Force be with you, always. 1. Whispers. Before the Order. Before the galaxy knew their name, before masks gleamed beneath starlight, there were only whispers. Faint stories of dark wanderers moving through the outer rim, like shadows caught between worlds. These early figures were not yet knights, nor bound to any creed. They were drifters who listened to the Force in its wildest, most untamed state, embracing the currents that others feared. Travelers spoke of them in hushed tones around dying campfires, beings who wandered battlefields in silence, collecting secrets the Force left behind. In their unstructured existence lay the seeds of the Knights of Ren, a path not born in temples, but in lonely nights among forgotten stars. And in that quiet darkness, the first echoes of Ren began to stir. 2. The first mask. Long before the Order was formalized, one wanderer donned a mask not to hide, but to transcend. The earliest traditions of masked dark warriors emerged from the unknown regions, places where maps failed, and even the Force seemed to curl inward. These proto-knights believed a mask freed its wearer from the burdens of identity, allowing them to act solely as instruments of instinct and power. Over time, their masks became more than protection. They became a ritual, a shedding of the past, like old skin left behind in starlit sands. The galaxy would come to fear those faceless silhouettes, but in the beginning, the mask was simply a mirror, reflecting the power one carried within. And with each masked breath, the myth grew deeper, waiting for its next bearer. 3. Birth of the Ren. The name Ren did not come from a person, but from a flame, a symbol of raw, unshaped power. Ancient tales speak of a burning blade, a weapon that radiated heat like the heart of a star, carried by a warrior who believed the Force should be embraced in all its chaos. This flame was not light nor dark, but pure desire, the will to act without hesitation. Over time, followers gathered around this philosophy, adopting the word Ren to represent that sacred fire. It became a banner, a belief system, and eventually an order. To wield the Ren was to surrender oneself to motion, to uncertainty, to the living pulse of power. And from that fire, the knights would one day rise, carried forward by its heat. 4. The rule of strength. Long before their name carried weight across the stars, the wanderers who would become the Knights of Ren followed a simple guide. Strength was the only measure that mattered. But theirs was not the loud, boastful strength of warlords. It was quiet, deliberate, like the steady glow of embers deep within a dying fire. They believed the Force did not reward those who hid from conflict, inner or outer, but those who faced it with unwavering honesty. A knight, even in the earliest days, accepted that struggle was part of the galaxy's rhythm. To be strong was not to dominate, but to remain unbroken. And through that quiet resilience, their path darkened into something more defined. 5. A creed without masters. Unlike the Sith or Jedi, the Knights carried no lineage, no codes carved in stone, no ancient masters overlooking their choices. Their creed was a living thing, born in the breath between battles, shaped by the experiences of each wanderer who joined their shadowed ranks. They rejected the chains of tradition, believing that too much structure dulled instinct, and that instinct was the truest connection to the Force's wildest pulse. They followed leaders only temporarily, stepping aside the moment another proved more attuned to the Ren's raw flame. Their freedom was unsettling to others, yet it allowed them to adapt like wind through forgotten ruins. And without masters, the Knights walked deeper into mystery, guided only by their own drifting stars. 6. The wandering darkness. Before they built reputation or ritual, the Knights of Ren existed as nomadic shadows moving from world to world, leaving no campsite, no stronghold, no holocron marking their passing. They lived within the spaces most beings avoided: abandoned temples, scorched battlefields, derelict ships drifting without power. Their wandering was purposeful. They believed darkness flowed most clearly in places touched by loss, conflict, or forgotten history. In the silence of these desolate regions, they listened to the Force as others might listen to the tide. Each new world shaped their philosophy, carved their purpose a little deeper, and drew them closer together as brothers of shadow. And somewhere along their endless travels, the Knights finally began to take shape. 7. The bond of the mask. For the Knights of Ren, the mask was not merely a covering, it was a quiet surrender of self. When a wanderer first donned the cold metal, they allowed their past to dissolve like mist over a distant moon. What mattered was not who they had been, but who they were willing to become beneath the Wren's shadow. Each mask differed in shape, style, and wear, yet all shared a common purpose: to remind the Knights that identity was fluid, and that power flowed more freely when ego was set aside. Behind those expressionless faces, they found unity, equality, and a strange calm in anonymity. And through that shared silence, the first true bond of the Order began to form. 8. The Black Path. The Knights believed in something they called the Black Path. Not a road carved into stone, but a spiritual journey through the darker currents of the Force. To walk this path was to accept uncertainty, to embrace desires without shame, and to allow the Ren flame to burn through hesitation. It was not inherently evil. Rather, it was raw, unstructured, and deeply personal. Every knight walked the Black Path differently, shaped by their fears, ambitions, and past wounds. What united them was the understanding that darkness, when acknowledged calmly, did not have to consume. It could guide, illuminate, and sharpen instinct. And as each knight walked their version of the Black Path, the Order's philosophy deepened. 9. The price of joining. Not all who sought the Knights of Ren were permitted to enter their ranks. For some, the journey ended before it began, consumed by trials meant to reveal truth, intention, and resolve. One such test involved confronting a reflection of oneself, fears, failures, and hidden desires rising like ghosts from the void. Another trial demanded sacrifice, something left behind to prove commitment to the Ren flame. These rituals were not meant to break a wanderer, but to peel away what was fragile or false. Only those who emerged with steady breath and unwavering purpose were invited to don the mask and join the Brotherhood. And for those who passed, a new life in darkness quietly awaited. 10. Echoes in the unknown regions. The unknown regions were more than a frontier for the Knights of Ren. They were a mirror of the Order's own wandering spirit. In that vast, uncharted expanse, hyperspace twisted like a restless serpent, and ancient energies drifted through the void. The Knights found comfort there, in places where the galaxy's rules blurred and the Force felt untamed. Worlds hidden behind storms of cosmic dust whispered forgotten truths, drawing the Knights deeper into their pull. These were lands untouched by Jedi or Sith, where darkness was neither forbidden nor worshipped, but simply present. In this endless hush, the Knights forged their earliest philosophies, and from those distant echoes, the Order's future began to hum softly into being. 11. The Ren flame central to their belief was the Ren flame. Not a literal fire, but a symbol of living, unrestrained power. The Knights taught that the Force could burn like a star's core when embraced without fear or doubt. To them, the flame represented motion, impulse, and desire. The pure spark that existed before morality or discipline shaped it. Knights meditated on this flame during long nights beneath distant skies, letting its imagined warmth fill their senses. In that glow, they surrendered hesitation and leaned into instinct, trusting the Force to guide without needing justification. The Ren flame asked for honesty, not corruption. And in its quiet glow, each knight found their own way through the shadows. 12. Living as an instrument. Unlike the Jedi, who sought harmony, or the Sith, who craved domination, the Knights of Ren aimed to become instruments, vessels through which the Force could act without restraint. They believed the galaxy moved with a rhythm, and their purpose was simply to follow it. When instinct whispered to strike, they struck. When instinct urged stillness, they stood silent as stone. This philosophy freed them from planning and anxiety, allowing them to drift through life with a strange sense of purpose. To be an instrument was to trust the Force fully, even in its darkest currents. And in that surrender, they felt the galaxy's deeper pulse begin to guide them onward. 13. Balance through fire. To the Knights of Ren, destruction was not senseless chaos. It was a form of balance. They believed that fire, whether literal or symbolic, cleared away the stagnant and revealed what was true beneath the ashes. This belief came from their earliest wanderings through war-torn worlds, where they noticed how life slowly returned to even the most devastated places. If the Force had a cycle, they reasoned, then fire was its breath of renewal. When a knight ignited a blade or cast aside hesitation, they saw it not as cruelty, but as motion, life continuing through change. And in that soft, flickering philosophy, the Knights found strange peace in the flames they carried. 14. The silence between stars. The galaxy often imagined the Knights of Ren as loud marauders, roaring through battles with wild abandon. Yet in truth, their greatest power came from silence. Between missions, they would gather beneath open skies or within derelict vessels, letting the hush of distant space settle around them like a blanket. In this silence, they meditated on instinct, listening for the subtle currents of the force that others overlooked. Some described it as hearing the heartbeat of the void, steady and ancient. In these moments of stillness, they sharpened their senses, preparing for whatever the Ren flame demanded next. And within that quiet, the knights discovered the calm that guided their wandering shadows. 15. The Masked Self. Each knight entered the order carrying memories, burdens, failures, old names that clung like dust. The mask, cold and impersonal, helped them set those weights aside. Once it covered their face, they no longer had to perform the roles the galaxy expected of them. They became, for a time, something simpler, a being driven by instinct and the raw pull of the Force. This anonymity allowed them to explore parts of themselves that had long been hidden. Behind the mask, they felt freer, quieter, more distant from the world's demands. And in that distance, they connected more deeply to the Ren flame. And through the mask's emptiness, each knight slowly shaped the self they wished to become. 16. Lessons from Ruin. The Knights of Ren often chose to make their camps in the ruins of forgotten battles, places where blaster scoring marked Durasteel, and the echoes of conflict lingered like faint ghosts. They believed every ruined place held a quiet wisdom, a story of choices made and paths taken. Among shattered walkers and burnt starfighter husks, a knight would sit in meditation, tracing their fingers over cold metal as if reading the galaxy's memories. These remnants reminded them that power rises and falls like the tides of distant moons. In Ruin, they saw the truth of impermanence, a lesson that shaped the calm acceptance at the heart of their wandering creed. And from each silent battleground, they carried a new whisper of understanding into the dark. 17. The Ren Weapon. A Knight of Ren did not choose their weapon lightly. Each blade, pike, or brutal hybrid tool had to reflect the instinct of its bearer. But above all weapons stood the burning blade, the symbol of the Ren itself. This crimson, crackling instrument reminded its wielder that the Force was meant to be raw and alive, imperfect, unpredictable. The unstable energy mirrored their own inner flames, flickering and snapping with the same restless spirit that guided their actions. To carry such a weapon was to embrace that volatility, trusting oneself to move with it rather than against it. And with every hiss of unstable light, the knights felt their connection to the Ren flame deepen. 18. The Drift of Fate. While the Jedi charted destinies and the Sith pursued grand designs, the Knights of Ren believed in something softer, the drift. To them, fate was like stardust carried on a cosmic wind, not demanding, not fixed, but gently guiding. When a knight felt a pull toward a certain world or person, they followed it without question. They trusted the Force to nudge them where they were meant to be, even if the path was uncertain. This drifting nature kept them constantly in motion, never settling for long, always chasing some quiet whisper on the horizon. And through fate's gentle breeze, the knights continued their wandering, step by shadowed step. 19. Fear as a companion. For the Knights of Ren, fear was never something to banish or deny. Instead, they saw it as a quiet companion, a small, persistent presence that followed them through each forgotten ruin and starless night. They believed fear sharpened the senses, revealing truths that confidence often concealed. During meditation, a knight would sit still and breathe into the feeling, letting it rise and fall like a distant tide. This practice did not make them fearless, but familiar with their own shadows. In knowing their fears, they learned to move with greater clarity, listening to instincts without hesitation. And through that gentle acceptance, fear became another teacher on their winding path. 20. A code, written in ash. The Knights of Ren carried no holocrons, scriptures, or formal scrolls of doctrine. Their code existed only in spoken words, drifting like smoke between campfires. Each leader added to these teachings, shaping the order little by little, until it resembled a story constantly rewritten by the galaxy itself. These lessons emphasized motion over stagnation, instinct over deliberation, and power as a flame that must never be left untended. The code reminded knights to trust themselves, to follow the Wren's call wherever it led, even into darkness. When a knight passed on, their teachings faded into ash, yet still influenced those who remained. And in those fragile whispered rules, the order found its shifting identity. 21. The early leader. Before Kylo Ren, before the order gained galactic notoriety, there was a figure known simply as Ren, a warrior who embodied the flame at the heart of the creed. Ren wandered the galaxy with an effortless confidence, his burning blade humming like a restless star. Those who met him described a presence neither cruel nor kind, but enthralled by the moment-to-moment rhythm of the Force. He believed in action without apology, in following desire without fear, and in embracing the chaos that others tried to chain or deny. Under his influence, the scattered wanderers began to coalesce into something resembling a brotherhood, and from this mysterious leader, the Knights of Ren found the name that would echo through darkness. 22. The Band of Six. In the earliest days of the Order, before their name reached fearful whispers on distant worlds, 6 wanderers gathered around Ren like embers drawn toward a single flame. Each came from a different corner of the galaxy, carrying wounds, secrets, and quiet hungers. Yet despite their differences, they shared a common instinct, a call from the Force that felt wild and unrestrained. Ren did not recruit them. They simply arrived, drifting into his orbit as if carried by fate. Together, they became the first true formation of the Knights of Ren, their movements syncing like shadows cast by the same flickering fire. And from that small, silent circle, the Order began to breathe as one. 23. First known hunt. The earliest recorded mission of the Knights of Ren was less a battle and more a ritual, a test of their unity across the vast, star-streaked night. They traveled to a remote outer rim world where a renegade Force-sensitive had taken refuge among the dunes. There was no grand pursuit, no armies clashing. Instead, the knights approached with quiet certainty, letting instinct guide each step through the soft desert winds. When they confronted the fugitive, the duel that followed was swift, almost serene, like a dance performed beneath a dim and patient moon. The knights emerged victorious, leaving only shifting sands behind. And from that gentle hunt, they learned how to move through the galaxy as a single shadow. 24. Walking the Red Path. Among the earliest traditions of the Order was a rite known as the Red Path, a journey walked alone across landscapes marked by danger, memory, or bloodshed. A knight was expected to travel without maps or guidance, listening only to the Force's quiet pull. Along the way, they were to confront illusions of their past, visions shaped by the darkness they carried. The purpose was not to terrify, but to clarify, to strip away noise and show the wanderer who they truly were beneath the mask. Many knights returned changed, calmer, more attuned to the Ren flame burning within. And with each step upon that crimson road, the Order deepened its bond to shadow. 25. The Lost Knight. Among the earliest wanderers, there was one knight whose name was never recorded, a quiet figure known only through fragmented tales. This knight walked deeper into the unknown regions than any before, following a pull in the Force that felt ancient and curious. For weeks, the others sensed his presence drifting farther and farther, like a lantern disappearing into thick fog. And then, one day, that presence faded completely. Some believed he found a world so steeped in the Force that he chose to remain there in eternal meditation. Others whispered that the darkness claimed him gently, folding him into its silent embrace. And though he vanished, his absence became part of the Order's myth, a reminder of the path's mysteries. 26. The Scarred Banner. Before they adopted masks as their unifying symbol, the Knights of Ren carried a tattered banner, a strip of black cloth scorched by blaster fire and singed by the heat of a burning blade. Ren himself had torn it from the ruins of an abandoned fortress, believing it held the echo of a fallen warrior's final stand. The knights treated the banner not as a relic to worship, but as a reminder of impermanence. Every symbol, every victory, every life eventually frayed with time. They would hang it in their camps, letting the wind tug gently at its edges. And beneath that drifting cloth, they remembered the fragility hidden inside every show of power. 27. The Broken Moon. One of the most significant battlegrounds in the Knights' early formation was a fractured moon orbiting a quiet gas giant. Cracked by ancient conflict, its surface hung in jagged shards, drifting slowly around a hollow core. The Knights were drawn there by a disturbance in the Force, a wound that pulsed like a heartbeat in the void. Upon its shattered plains, they encountered remnants of forgotten Force traditions, echoes trapped in crystalline rubble. The moon became a place of reflection for the Order, teaching them that even broken worlds carry stories worth listening to. There, they meditated amid floating stone and lingering starlight. And from that haunting place, the Knights learned that beauty could live quietly within ruin. 28. Rituals of the Void. When the Knights of Ren gathered for reflection, they did so not in temples or halls, but in the vast, open quiet of abandoned places. These gatherings became known as the Rituals of the Void, ceremonies without formal steps, where each knight sat in silence beneath the sweep of distant stars. They would still their thoughts, breathe slowly, and allow the Force to fill the space around them like a soft, unseen tide. Sometimes the void felt comforting, like a blanket of shadow. Other times it whispered truths they were not ready to hear. In either case, the knights embraced whatever rose within, and in that unbroken stillness, they learned to listen to the darkness with calm, unguarded hearts. 29. Gathering the Blades. One of the earliest traditions among the knights involved collecting weapons from those they defeated, not as trophies, but as quiet acknowledgments of fate's turning. These blades, staffs, and crude sabers carried the weight of their former owners' stories. The knights believed that by holding these relics, they momentarily touched the echoes of past choices, victories, and regrets. In their camps, these weapons were laid out in careful patterns, forming circles that represented the unending cycle of conflict and change. Each knight contributed to the circle, adding their own small piece of history to the growing tapestry of metal and memory. And as the circle expanded, the knights saw how every life, every battle, shaped the flame they followed. 30. A warning to the Sith. Though the Knights of Ren often crossed paths with dark side traditions, they remained wary of the Sith. Old stories told of a confrontation between the earliest knights and a forgotten Sith acolyte who sought to bend them to his master's will. The knights refused, not out of pride, but out of instinct, sensing the rigid ambition that defined the Sith, a hunger that chained the Force rather than listening to it. The battle was brief, marked by crimson sparks beneath a storm-lit sky. When it ended, the knights walked away unchanged, carrying only a lesson: that the Sith's path was not theirs to follow. And from that lone clash, a quiet boundary was drawn between the Ren flame and the Sith's cold hunger. 31. A Jedi in turmoil. Before Ben Solo ever crossed paths with the Knights of Ren, he carried a storm inside him, a quiet, simmering conflict that the Jedi could sense but never fully soothe. He felt the Force in ways that were both comforting and overwhelming, as though its currents were calling him in two directions at once. Knights at Luke's academy would often find him awake beneath the stars, wondering why the light felt too rigid and the dark too wild. In that uncertainty, his thoughts drifted toward legends he'd heard in whispers, of wanderers who lived not by rules, but by instinct. And so, long before he met them, the Knights of Ren were already a shadow in Ben's restless mind. 32. The temptation of strength. As Ben grew older, he began to notice the fractures between how the Jedi taught the Force and how he felt it naturally. The discipline, the calm, the patience. These virtues sat uneasily against the raw, pulsing energy that surged through him. When he first learned of the Knights of Ren, their philosophy of unrestrained power resonated like a distant echo of something he had always known. Stories of the Ren flame, of following instinct without apology, stirred something both dangerous and comforting within him. He wondered if strength could be more honest when stripped of judgment. And in that quiet longing, the path toward the Knights began to illuminate itself like embers in the dark. 33. Ren's invitation. Ben Solo's first encounter with the Knights of Ren was not a battle, but a conversation held in the soft glow of a dying fire. Ren, the Order's enigmatic leader, sensed the turmoil within the young Jedi and saw in him the unrefined potential that aligned with the Ren flame. He did not pressure Ben, nor offer promises of power. Instead, he simply invited him to listen, to let instinct speak without the restraints of Jedi doctrine. The offer lingered in Ben's thoughts like a whisper he couldn't ignore, a possibility that felt both terrifying and strangely peaceful. And from that single invitation, the threads of destiny quietly began to tighten around him. 34. The Night of Ashes. The night the Jedi Temple fell remains one of the quietest, yet most pivotal moments in the story of Ben Solo and the Knights of Ren. Though legends often paint it with fire and fury, the truth felt strangely still, a heaviness in the Force, like the universe holding its breath. As flames rose around the ruins of Luke's academy, Ben stood in the soft crackle of embers, feeling the fragments of his old life drifting away like scorched leaves. The Knights of Ren sensed this transformation from afar, drawn toward the shifting current of power, and in that silent devastation, Ben's path bent irrevocably toward the darkness that awaited him. 35. Becoming Kylo Ren. When Ben Solo finally surrendered his past, he took on a new name, Kylo Ren, This name was more than a mask. It was a mantle, a promise to embrace instinct over discipline, desire over hesitation. Ren himself, the leader of the Order, acknowledged Ben's transformation with a calm, accepting nod, sensing the depth of the flame that burned within him. For Kylo, the name symbolized liberation from the expectations of Jedi and family alike. It was a rebirth into something freer, more fluid, shaped by raw emotion and unrestrained power. And with the claiming of that name, Kylo stepped fully into the shadowed brotherhood of the Ren. 36. The Seventh Shadow. When Kylo Ren joined the Order, he did so not as a leader, but as the seventh presence in their circle. A new shadow moving quietly among the others. The knights observed him with wordless curiosity, sensing the depth of his turmoil and the strength that flickered beneath it. He trained beside them, listened beside them, meditated in stillness beside them, learning the rhythm of their wandering creed. Though his power eclipsed theirs even then, Kylo chose to walk among them as an equal at first, feeling the strange comfort of anonymity the mask provided. And in that brotherhood of wandering shadows, Kylo Ren began to find a place that felt hauntingly familiar. 37. The First Mission. Kylo Ren's first mission with the Knights was not a test of dominance, but a quiet initiation into their wandering rhythm. They traveled together to a storm-scarred world where abandoned outposts lay buried beneath shifting clouds of ash. Their goal was simple: follow the pull of instinct and discover what the Force wished to reveal. Kylo walked in silence beside the others, listening to the subtle hum of their connection, a bond formed not by hierarchy, but by shared purpose. When they finally confronted a group of raiders disturbing the ruins, the conflict was swift, almost effortless. And in the soft aftermath of that first hunt, Kylo felt the Ren flame settle more firmly into his spirit. 38. The Mask Bond. Though Kylo Ren already bore a mask forged in his own image, the Knights welcomed it as a natural extension of their creed. They believed a mask allowed the wearer to step beyond the limitations of identity, and Kylo's design, angular, cold, and fractured with silver lines, spoke of a soul wrestling with both strength and sorrow. During quiet nights, beneath unfamiliar stars, the Knights would sit together in meditative stillness, their masks reflecting the firelight like silent sentinels. In these shared moments, Kylo felt an unexpected sense of belonging, as if the metal he wore connected him to something ancient and universal. And behind the mask's stillness, he drifted deeper into the unity of their shadowed brotherhood. 39. Learning the silence. Unlike the Jedi, who prized contemplation, or the Sith, who sharpened their focus through anger, the Knights of Ren found power in a unique form of silence, one that lived between instinct and action. Kylo Ren learned this practice slowly, sitting with the others in the quiet of derelict ships, or beneath the whisper of distant winds. He let his thoughts loosen, uncoiling like smoke rising from cooling embers. In this calm, he felt the Force surge in unpredictable, vivid waves, guiding him without words. The silence did not erase his turmoil, but it softened it, shaping it into something he could move with rather than resist. And in that gentle, drifting stillness, Kylo Ren began to hear the true heartbeat of the Ren flame. 40. A leader in waiting. Even as Kylo Ren walked among the Knights as an equal, the others sensed a quiet shift forming around him, as if the Force itself leaned subtly in his direction. His connection to the Ren flame burned brighter, more turbulent, but also more focused than theirs. When he moved, their instincts followed. When he stood still, their breath seemed to settle with his. No words were spoken about leadership, no challenges issued, yet the group began to drift in his orbit, like fragments of metal drawn toward a powerful magnet. Kylo himself did not seize authority. He simply existed with a gravity that changed the air around him. And in that unspoken pull, the seeds of his rise began to shimmer like embers waiting for wind. 41. The duel with Ren. The moment Kylo Ren ascended to leadership did not come from ambition, but from inevitability. A path lit quietly by instinct and the flame's restless desire for strength. Ren, the wandering leader whose name had shaped the Order, sensed the shift clearly. One night, beneath the pale glow of a fractured moon, he invited Kylo to settle the matter in the way of their tradition. The duel was swift and strangely elegant, sparks scattering into the cool night air like drifting fireflies. Ren fought without fear, accepting the flow of fate. When Kylo's blade finally struck true, Ren fell with a faint exhale, offering no anger, no regret. And in that soft, final breath, the torch of the Ren passed fully into Kylo's waiting hands. 42. Claiming the burning blade. With Ren fallen, Kylo stepped forward to claim the burning blade, the symbolic weapon that represented the heart of the Order. Its unstable heat pulsed through the air, flickering like a star on the verge of collapse. When Kylo wrapped his hand around the hilt, the flame reacted instantly, roaring brighter as if recognizing its new master. The other knights watched in silence, their masks reflecting the crimson glow as the blade hummed with renewed life. In that moment, Kylo was no longer a wanderer among them. He was the center of their path, the flame bearer who would reshape their purpose. And with the blade's restless heat in his grip, Kylo Ren stepped into the role he had long been drifting toward. 43. A new doctrine. With Kylo Ren now guiding the Order, the knights felt the Ren flame tremble with a new intensity, sharper, more focused, yet still fluid enough to drift with the Force's shifting winds. Kylo did not rewrite their creed. Instead, he refined its edges, turning instinct into something closer to intention. He believed power should move with purpose, not simply react to the galaxy's whims. Under his quiet influence, the knights became more deliberate in their hunts, more attuned to the subtle tensions that shape the Force. Their wandering grew less aimless, their steps more measured. And within those careful refinements, Kylo's doctrine reshaped the Brotherhood like a sculptor guiding fire-softened metal. 44. Storms over the galaxy. As Kylo's leadership settled into place, the Knights of Ren drifted into regions where the galaxy frayed at the seams, worlds plagued by unrest, star systems forgotten by the New Republic's distant gaze. They arrived not as conquerors, but as storms passing quietly overhead, unsettling the air with their presence. On these planets, their movements were swift and wordless, their strikes guided by instinct and the Ren flame's invisible pull. Villagers spoke of them afterward in hushed, trembling tones, recalling masked silhouettes moving through smoke like phantoms. Yet to the Knights, each mission was simply the next step on their path, and wherever their shadows passed, the galaxy felt the subtle shiver of their growing power. 45. The Hunt for Force. Echoes. Under Kylo Ren's direction, the Knights began to seek out ancient sites where the Force left behind lingering impressions, resonant echoes of old battles, forgotten tragedies, or powerful decisions made long ago. These echoes shimmered like faint ripples in the air, their stories waiting to be sensed rather than seen. The knights would wander through these places in meditative silence, letting the force brush against them like cool night wind. Sometimes they recovered relics, sometimes only whispers of history. Kylo believed each echo added depth to their understanding, drawing them closer to truths hidden beneath centuries of dust. And as they gathered these quiet remnants, the knights wove them into the ever-shifting tapestry of their shadowed creed. 46. The Emissaries of Fear. To much of the galaxy, the Knights of Ren became figures of unsettling legend, not rulers, not conquerors, but wandering emissaries carrying fear like a quiet aura around them. Their presence alone could silence a crowd, the edges of their masks catching dim light like shards of a forgotten nightmare. Yet the fear they evoked was never loud. It was the soft, creeping kind, like the chill that settles before a storm. The knights understood this effect and used it sparingly, allowing rumor and imagination to do most of the work. In truth, they were not interested in terror for its own sake. And in the spaces between their appearances, their legend grew, drifting through the galaxy like cold, whispering wind. 47. Masks in the night. When the knights moved through darkness, their masks became living symbols, emotionless, gleaming, and eerily still. They preferred to travel under the cover of night, letting shadow wrap around them like a cloak. In these quiet hours, the galaxy seemed to fall away, leaving only the murmur of distant stars and the soft crunch of boots on alien soil. Their masks served as both armor and meditation, helping them slip into a mindset where instinct guided every motion. To those who glimpsed them briefly, they appeared less like men and more like silhouettes stepping out of a dream. And in the hush of night, the knights felt closest to the wandering flame that shaped their path. 48. The Bond of Obedience. Though the Knights of Ren valued independence, their loyalty to Kylo Ren grew into something deeper, a bond forged through shared trials, wandering, and instinct. They followed him not because he commanded them, but because his presence aligned so naturally with the Ren flame that it felt inevitable. When Kylo acted, they acted. When he paused, they stilled as though listening to the same hidden pulse. Their obedience was quiet, almost ritualistic, born from respect rather than fear. In Kylo, they saw a leader who walked the black path with both certainty and sorrow, and they trusted that mixture more than any declaration. And through that unspoken loyalty, their brotherhood tightened like shadows, drawn together by the same drifting wind. 49. The Search for Ancient Holocrons. Under Kylo Ren's guiding presence, the Knights began pursuing traces of ancient holocrons, those crystalline vessels that held echoes of long-lost knowledge. They drifted through forgotten temples, swallowed by vines, through derelict starships where only dust and memory remained. Often, they found nothing more than fractured shards humming faintly with left-behind emotion. Yet even these fragments felt precious, like tiny constellations of wisdom scattered across the galaxy. The Knights believed that every echo, even the faintest one, carried a lesson that might stir the Ren flame deeper within them. And in each distant ruin, they felt the quiet pull of secrets waiting patiently to be heard once more. 50. The Shadow Squadron. As their reputation spread, the First Order began to weave the Knights into its darker operations, forming what soldiers called the Shadow Squadron. Unlike stormtroopers or officers, the Knights operated outside the rigid command structure. They would appear without warning, drifting through hangars like figures carried on some invisible current, answering to no one but Kylo Ren. When a mission required precision, instinct, or the unsettling aura only they could bring, the Shadow Squadron moved in silence, completing tasks with eerie efficiency. To the First Order, they were a necessary mystery, and among the ranks, their passing felt like a chill in the air, a reminder that darkness traveled beside them. 51. Vikrul, the Harvester. Vikrul, one of the 6 knights, was known quietly as the Harvester, a name spoken like a shadow, slipping across a dim corridor. Tall and silent, he carried a humming scythe-like blade that seemed to drink in the echoes of fear around him. Vikrul rarely spoke, preferring instead to listen to the quiet rhythms of the Force. He moved with an almost spectral grace, gliding across battlegrounds as though weightless. Some claimed he could sense intentions before they formed, reading the silent tremors within a person's spirit. And in every soft footstep Vikrul took, the knights felt the presence of a shadow who had mastered serenity within darkness. 52. Cardo, the Armorer. Cardo was the knight whose presence felt like a forge at the heart of a winter storm, steady, simmering, and quietly dangerous. Known as the Armorer, he bore a massive, multi-function cannon crafted from scavenged parts of forgotten wars. His armor was heavier than the others, layered in thick plates, scorched by countless tests of fire and blast. Yet despite this weight, Cardo carried himself with surprising calm. When the knights rested beneath star-streaked skies, he would sit apart, cleaning and adjusting his weaponry with deliberate, meditative focus. Each tool, each burn mark, told a story of adaptation and instinct. And in Cardo's quiet craftsmanship, the knights found a reminder that even destruction could be shaped with patient, steady hands. 53. Ushar, the Judge. Ushar moved through the galaxy with a stern, contemplative presence, earning him the name the Judge. He carried a wicked, hooked blade and spoke rarely, yet when he did, his words carried the weight of deep reflection. Ushar's role within the Order was to sense truth, to feel the tremors of intention within those they encountered. He believed that every individual carried a spark of honesty, even beneath fear or deception, and he sought to read that spark with precision. During missions, the other knights often deferred to his quiet assessments, and wherever Ushar walked, the air seemed to still, as though the Force itself paused to consider his silent judgments. 54. Trugan, the Relic Keeper. Trugan, towering and solemn, was known as the Relic Keeper, the knight who bore upon his back a collection of ancient blades and worn weapons, each scavenged from fallen warriors. He treated these relics not as trophies, but as echoes of forgotten lives, listening to the soft, lingering emotions that clung to their surfaces. His own weapon, a broad vibro cleaver, hummed with heavy purpose, cutting through the air like a mournful bell. In quiet moments, Trugan would sit with his relics spread around him, as though speaking to them in a language only he understood. And within his careful reverence, the knights sensed a deeper truth, that history lived on through those willing to hear its gentle whisper. 55. Aplek, the Shrouded Warrior. Aplek drifted through battlefields like a phantom wrapped in smoke. Known as the Shrouded Warrior, he favored a strange hybrid weapon, part vibro axe, part energy staff, which hummed with an eerie, resonant pulse when ignited. His armor bore tattered strips of cloth, remnants of forgotten banners he had claimed from past conflicts, each one carrying a faint echo of history. Among the knights, Aplek was the most mysterious, often meditating with his hood drawn low, as if listening to faraway voices carried on the Force's deeper currents. And in every soft footfall he took, the others felt the lingering presence of a warrior, forever half hidden in shadow. 56. Kuruk, the Berserker. Kuruk was the storm at the heart of the Order, a silent, unstoppable force known simply as the Berserker. He wielded twin vibrocleavers that sang with violent potential, yet moved with a discipline that belied the ferocity of his title. In battle, he advanced like a patient avalanche, steady and inevitable, letting instinct guide every swing. His breathing remained slow, almost meditative, even as sparks and screams filled the air. The other knights respected him for his unwavering presence, the calm center he maintained even when chaos surrounded them. And in that paradox of fury and serenity, Kuruk embodied the Ren flame in its rawest, most focused form. 57. The masks they wear. Though each knight carried a distinct personality, their masks unified them in purpose and philosophy. Crafted from salvaged metals, cracked visors, and scorched alloys, no two masks were identical. Yet all served the same quiet function: to free the wearer from the noise of self. A mask allowed a knight to become motion, instinct, flame. It shielded doubts, softened memories, and created a serene distance between the individual and the galaxy's expectations. In moonlit camps, the knights would set their masks beside them in a circle, letting starlight reflect across the cold surfaces like constellations made of metal. And in those reflections, they were reminded that identity was ever shifting, like shadows drifting across a silent world. 58. Blades of the fallen among the Knights of Ren. Weapons taken from defeated opponents were never viewed as spoils of war. Instead, they were regarded as quiet echoes, fragments of stories that still lingered in the metal. When a knight claimed such a blade, they would sit with it in stillness, feeling the faint ripples of memory held within its weight. Some carried fear, others regret, others a final spark of courage left behind by their previous wielders. The knights treated each blade with a solemn respect, understanding that these remnants whispered the lessons of lives intertwined with the Force. And in those muted whispers, the knights found guidance etched not in words, but in the lingering traces of the fallen. 59. Lessons from the Old Wars. Though the knights rejected the rigid doctrines of Jedi and Sith, they still studied the remnants of ancient conflicts, the Clone Wars, the battles of the Old Republic, and conflicts so old they existed only as faint Force impressions. They observed how armies rose and fell, how power shifted like tides, and how even the greatest warriors were swept along by forces bigger than themselves. These reflections were not to glorify violence, but to understand the patterns beneath it. The knights believed that by listening to history's quiet heartbeat, they could better sense where the Ren flame wished to guide them next. And from every old battlefield they visited, they carried another soft lesson about the galaxy's ever-turning wheel. 60. The weight of brotherhood. Though each knight walked their own dark path, they shared a bond that went beyond loyalty or shared purpose. A brotherhood formed in silence, firelight, and countless hours wandering the void together. They rarely spoke of it, yet the connection was unmistakable. When one knight struggled, the others sensed it in the Force like a ripple in calm water. When one acted on instinct, the rest followed as if carried by the same breath. Their unity was not forged through commands or rules, but through the simple truth that none of them walked alone. And in that unspoken togetherness, the knights found a gentle steadiness within the ever-shifting shadows. 61. Kylo's Tasks of Fire. When Kylo Ren rose to prominence within the First Order, Supreme Leader Snoke gave him missions designed to test the depth of his connection to the Ren flame. These became known quietly among the knights as the Tasks of Fire, trials in which Kylo was expected to act not with deliberation, but with instinct sharpened by emotion. Worlds in turmoil, sects hiding ancient relics, pockets of resistance formed in forgotten space. Kylo approached each with the calm ferocity of a blade being drawn from its sheath. The knights followed him, watching the fire in him flicker, swell, and stabilize. And through every task, they saw a leader shaped not by command, but by the steady burn of inner purpose. 62. Voyages into the unknown. Despite their growing role within the First Order, the Knights of Ren continued to drift toward the edges of mapped space, drawn back again and again to the mysteries of the unknown regions. These voyages carried them across jagged star fields, past ancient anomalies, and through cosmic storms where hyperspace rippled like a disturbed ocean. Some worlds they visited had no names, only coordinates whispered by the Force. There, the knights would pause and listen, to silence, to instinct, to whatever faint impression lingered in the air. These journeys reminded them of who they had been before the First Order's structure pressed upon them. And in the vast, star-dusted quiet, they rediscovered the wandering spirit at the heart of their creed. 63. The Silent Cruisers. To travel through both First Order territory and lawless frontiers, the Knights used unique vessels known as silent cruisers, ships stripped of unnecessary systems and tuned to move like shadows through space. Their engines emitted low, almost meditative vibrations, and their hulls were coated in materials that absorbed light rather than reflected it. Inside, the corridors were dim, lined with worn metal and the scent of ozone from their weaponry. The cruisers offered no luxury, only efficiency and stillness. During long journeys, the knights would sit along the narrow benches, masks resting on their knees, meditating in the calm hum of the engines. And as their ships glided through the starless dark, the knights felt the universe breathe around them in gentle rhythm. 64. Shadow Hunts. Among the First Order's most secretive directives were missions known quietly as shadow hunts, operations in which the Knights of Ren tracked individuals whose presence in the Force created unusual ripples. These weren't always Jedi or rebels. Sometimes they were wanderers, hermits, or frightened youths who didn't yet understand the strange abilities stirring inside them. The knights approached these hunts with a serene, almost ritualistic focus. They let instinct guide their steps, following whispers through forests thick with mist or cities humming with neon light. Their purpose was not always confrontation. Sometimes it was simply to observe, to sense, to understand. And in every shadow they pursued, the knights listened for the faint tremors of a galaxy shifting softly beneath their feet. 65. Whispers in the ranks. Among stormtroopers and officers of the First Order, the Knights of Ren were spoken of in low, uneasy tones. Their arrival on a star destroyer brought with it a prickle in the air, as though the temperature had dropped by a degree. Troopers would pause mid-task, watching the masked figures pass like silent phantoms. They never knew why the knights had come, or what task they followed. And because the knights answered only to Kylo Ren, rumors spread quickly. Tales of their abilities, their rituals, their strange connection to the Force. Even the most hardened officers stepped aside in their presence, and through those drifting whispers, the Knights became larger than life, a quiet myth woven into the First Order's steel corridors. 66. The trials they imposed on worlds the First Order sought to control. The Knights of Ren sometimes conducted trials. Tests meant not to punish, but to reveal truth. These trials were simple. A question asked, a choice offered, a fear confronted. A villager might be asked to step forward and face the weight of their own hidden intentions. A captured scout might be told to speak honestly and feel the Force stir around their words. The Knights did not judge these outcomes with cruelty. Rather, they observed them with calm detachment, letting instinct decide the path forward. And in those quiet, unsettling moments, the Knights saw into the hearts of strangers as clearly as stars seen through the stillness of deep night. 67. The First Order's shame. There were missions the First Order preferred to keep hidden. Operations too delicate, too morally gray, even for their own rigid structure. In these moments, they summoned the Knights of Ren, trusting the masked wanderers to move through the galaxy, without questions or records. The Knights approached such missions with their usual calm detachment, drifting through the shadows of war-torn settlements or derelict outposts where secrets festered like old wounds. To them, these tasks were neither cruel nor noble. They were simply another part of the Force's unfolding rhythm. And when the job was done, they departed without fanfare, leaving no trace beyond uneasy stories shared by those who survived. And in the echo of those unspoken deeds, the galaxy felt a chill that lingered long after their passing. 68. The Fallen Starfield. One of the darkest legends surrounding the Knights of Ren tells of the Fallen Starfield, a remote stretch of space littered with drifting wreckage from a forgotten battle. The First Order sent the Knights there in search of a powerful artifact rumored to be hidden among the shattered remnants of old ships. As their silent cruiser glided through the metallic graveyard, the Knights moved across fractured hulls and silent corridors, their footsteps echoing like distant heartbeats. They sensed echoes of terror, bravery, and final breaths lingering in the wrecks, memories frozen in the cold vacuum. The artifact they sought was eventually found, but the Knights left more contemplative than triumphant. And in that somber starfield, they were reminded that even victory carries the quiet weight of loss. 69. The Lost Mission. Among the Knights, stories were sometimes whispered of the Lost Mission, a journey so shrouded in mystery that even within their ranks, details blurred like fog over a darkened sea. The mission began with a faint disturbance sensed deep within the unknown regions, a pull that felt older than any of their teachings. One Knight, guided by instinct, followed the disturbance alone, drifting through ravaged hyperspace lanes and past worlds untouched by charted maps. Days turned to weeks, and no message returned. Some believed the Knight found a place where the Force pooled like still water. Others thought he simply chose never to return. And in that empty space where certainty dissolved, the Knights learned to accept that some paths end only in silence. 70. Dark meditation chambers. Hidden deep within certain First Order vessels were rooms known only to a few. Dark meditation chambers, crafted specifically for the Knights of Ren. These small, circular spaces were soundless, shielded from vibration and light, their walls lined with obsidian tiles that absorbed every whisper of movement. Inside, the Knights would sit in stillness, masks resting on their knees, letting the chamber amplify the Force's faintest murmurs. Here, they reached levels of introspection too delicate for crowded ships or battlefield ruins. Some knights claimed the chamber allowed them to hear their own heartbeat, merging with the slow pulse of the galaxy itself. And in that deep, enveloping quiet, the knights found a refuge where their shadows softened into calm. 71. Palpatine's return. Long before the galaxy learned of the Emperor's resurrection, the Knights of Ren felt a tremor ripple through the Force, a distant, ancient cold stirring beneath layers of forgotten darkness. It was not a voice, nor a vision, but a chill threading slowly through their instincts, nudging them like a winter wind against the armor. They did not know the source, only that something old and immeasurably heavy had awakened. Kylo sensed it most strongly, pausing often during their hunts, his gaze drifting toward the far reaches of space as if listening to an echo carried on cosmic frost. And though they could not yet name it, the knights understood that the galaxy's shadows were beginning to shift. 72. Kylo's new purpose. As whispers of ancient darkness grew stronger, Kylo Ren found his path narrowing into sharp clarity. The Ren flame inside him flared with restless curiosity, urging him to uncover the truth behind the presence stirring in the void. He began guiding the knights toward hidden coordinates, forgotten vaults, and derelict temples filled with dust older than the Republic itself. His movements became more deliberate, his instincts more acute, as though he were following a thread woven long before his birth. The knights followed without question, sensing that Kylo's purpose had deepened into something far more profound. And as they drifted after him, the stars themselves seemed to lean closer, listening to the unfolding of destiny. 73. Journeys to Exegol. Eventually, Kylo Ren's wandering path led the knights toward a set of ancient coordinates, a route obscured by cosmic storms and jagged distortions in hyperspace. This road ended at Exegol, a world steeped in cold, echoing silence. The knights felt its presence long before they saw it, a gravity in the Force pulling them downward like a whisper made of stone. When their cruiser broke through the clouds, Exegol greeted them with lightning that crawled across the skies like pale, trembling veins. The knights disembarked in stillness, masks glinting faintly. They sensed an immense, slumbering power waiting beneath the planet's shadowed spires. And as they stepped onto that ancient soil, the darkness around them seemed to breathe with quiet awareness. 74. The Bond Cracks. Though the knights had long followed Kylo with unwavering instinct, their bond began to shift subtly upon reaching Exegol. The energy there felt different from the Ren flame, colder, more possessive, like a hand closing slowly around the heart. Some knights felt unease coil quietly beneath their armor, as if the Force itself were urging caution. Kylo, however, was drawn deeper into the mysteries unfolding before him, barely noticing the tension growing in the air. For the first time, the knights felt their paths diverging, faint threads of uncertainty tugging at the edges of their brotherhood. And in that delicate fracture, the future of the Order trembled like a candle in a draught. 75. A Test of Devotion. Amid Exegol's storm-lit corridors, the Knights of Ren found themselves facing a challenge unlike any ritual or trial they had known. The ancient darkness radiating from the depths of the planet seemed to test their convictions, pressing against their senses with whispers older than their philosophy. Each knight felt something different: doubt, temptation, resistance, or a cold curiosity. Kylo Ren, drawn into the Emperor's web, seemed increasingly distant, as though the Ren flame flickered beneath a heavier shadow. Watching him, the knights sensed that loyalty might soon require a choice, one that would shape the final arc of their wandering story. And in that tense, quiet moment, the bonds they had forged in shadow began to stretch toward breaking. 76. The Last Hunt. As Kylo Ren drifted deeper into the cold orbit of Exegol's ancient power, the knights continued their missions across the galaxy. But something essential had changed. Their hunts felt heavier now, as though each step through ruined temples or dark forests carried the echo of an approaching ending. They followed the Force's call with the same practiced calm, yet their movements lacked the unity that once bound them so tightly. Some knights walked ahead with determination, while others lagged, listening for a flame that seemed to flicker farther away each day. This final hunt was not marked by violence, but by an unsettling quiet, the stillness of something unraveling. And through that drifting silence, the knights sensed that their wandering path had nearly reached its last horizon. 77. Kylo Ren's Redemption. The moment Kylo Ren turned back toward the light, the galaxy shuddered, and the Knights of Ren felt that tremor like a cold wind passing through their bones. To them, Kylo was the embodiment of the Ren flame, the living spark that gave their order direction. When his heart shifted, it was as if the flame itself dimmed, pulled toward a warmth they did not understand. The knights didn't see his redemption as betrayal. They felt it as a subtle loosening, a thread quietly slipping free from the tapestry they had woven together. Instinct told them the bond had changed, that Kylo now walked a path they could not follow. And in that realization, the darkness around them became uncomfortably still, like night waiting for dawn. 78. The Knights' Final Mission. With Kylo's transformation complete, the Knights of Ren took on one final task, not by command, but by instinct, by the deep pull of the Ren flame reacting to the shift within its former bearer. Their mission was simple and solemn: confront the one who had once been their brother in shadow. They tracked Ben Solo across the remnants of war, following his presence through whispers in the Force and faint impressions in the air. Yet there was no hatred in their pursuit, only inevitability, like the last notes of a song returning to silence. As they approached him, each knight felt the weight of destiny settling softly on their shoulders. And in that gentle, foreboding moment, the Order prepared to meet the twilight of its own story. 79. The Duel on Exegol. When the knights finally confronted Ben Solo on the storm-lashed plains of Exegol, the moment carried the weight of years, of shared silence, shared wanderings, shared darkness. Lightning rippled overhead, illuminating their masks in stark flashes as they circled him like shadows, remembering a former brother. There were no words, no accusations, only a quiet recognition that the flame binding them had changed colors, flickering now with a warmth they could not follow. Their clash was swift and sorrowful, a flurry of instinct and memory dancing beneath the trembling sky. Ben fought not out of anger, but necessity, moving with the heartbreaking certainty of someone severing the final ties of a life he'd once lived. And as the storm roared around them, the knights felt their story crest toward its final, inevitable silence. Eduari. The silence after battle. When the confrontation ended, the energy of Exegol seemed to grow heavier, settling like dust upon a long-forgotten tomb. The Knights of Ren, once wanderers bound by instinct and shadow, now lay still upon the darkened stones. The Ren flame flickered out, their masks resting in quiet disarray. The galaxy did not feel their passing in a thunderclap. It felt it in a subtle shift, the way a room grows quieter when a single candle is extinguished. For all their fearsome reputation, their ending was gentle, their presence absorbed by the ancient hush of Exegol's endless night. And in that profound stillness, the story of the nights faded into memory, like embers cooling after a long burning fire. 81. The Lost Teachings. After the fall of the Knights, curious scholars and wanderers spoke of their teachings, a philosophy neither Sith nor Jedi, built from instinct, wandering, and the soft acceptance of inner shadow. These teachings were never written, never carved into stone or trapped within holocrons. They lived only in whispers, the Ren flame, the black path, the art of listening to silence, the belief that power could be honest when stripped of pretense. Though the knights were gone, their ideas drifted outward into the Force, subtle as dust carried on a quiet breeze. Some said the flame still flickered somewhere in the unknown, waiting for new eyes, willing to see beyond light and dark. And from those lingering teachings, a soft echo of the Ren continued to hum gently through the galaxy. 82. Artifacts in the Ashes. In the quiet months after Exegol, scavengers and historians wandered the scattered remnants of the Final Order's collapse. Among cold ruins and collapsed starship hulls, they discovered small artifacts tied to the Knights of Ren. Fragments of scorched armor, broken blades, and masks cracked open like fallen shells. Each item seemed to hum faintly with residual emotion, the lingering echo of a life lived in shadow. Those who found these relics often described a subdued feeling, as though the objects carried not malice but melancholy. Nothing remained whole, nothing powerful. Only memories held gently within twisted metal. And in those lonely ashes, the galaxy began to understand that the Knight's legacy was woven from silence as much as flame. 83. Whispers in the Void. As time passed, rumors scattered across the outer rim like drifting stardust. Some claimed that not all the Knights perished on Exegol, that a few had slipped away into the unknown, their presence felt only as faint tremors in the Force. Pilots swore they saw masked figures boarding shadowed ships along forgotten hyperlanes. Hermits on remote moons spoke of silhouettes appearing at dusk, watching from the cliffs before vanishing into the night. These whispers offered no proof, but they carried a certain gentle possibility that the Ren flame, dimmed but not extinguished, might still wander somewhere in the galaxy. And in those quiet rumors, hope and fear mingled like twin stars, shining faintly through distant clouds. 84. The Ren flame rekindled. In the years following their disappearance, small cults and curious imitators began to rise. Groups who tried to reconstruct the Knight's philosophy from scattered stories and misunderstood fragments. They lit symbolic fires, donned homemade masks, and attempted to follow the black path without truly grasping its original meaning. Their movements lacked the calm instinct that defined the true Knights, yet they carried a sincere desire to touch the hidden currents of the Force. Some scholars believed these groups represented the natural persistence of myth, how stories ignite new flames even after the original embers fade. And so, in dim corners of forgotten worlds, faint reflections of the Ren flickered once more, soft and uncertain, but undeniably alive. 85. The Unknown Regions. Remnants. Deep within the ragged star fields of the unknown regions, long after the Knights of Ren had faded into legend, explorers reported finding quiet traces of their presence. Small campsites left undisturbed for years, scorched symbols carved into stone, and faint disturbances in the force, like the echo of footsteps long since departed. Some worlds still held the eerie stillness the nights favored, their air tinged with the feeling of unspoken contemplation. These remnants suggested that the Order's roots were older and wider than anyone had realized, branching through forgotten worlds like invisible vines. And in those far-off uncharted corners, it felt as though the night's shadows still lingered softly beneath distant suns. 86. Masks without masters, across abandoned ruins and derelict ships. Scavengers sometimes stumbled upon the strangest sight, masks left behind with deliberate placement, as though their owners had set them down gently before walking away. These discarded masks carried no hostility within them, only a quiet finality, like the last page of a long, wandering story. Some were cracked, others scorched, a few still polished enough to catch the glint of starlight. Scholars debated whether these masks were relics of knights who perished or symbols of those who chose to leave the path behind. But regardless of origin, the masks radiated a calm stillness, and resting there in silence, they seemed to whisper that even the fiercest shadows eventually seek rest. 87. The Lessons of Power. As Force philosophers reflected on the rise and fall of the Knights of Ren, they saw in the Order a unique lesson about power, one neither heroic nor villainous, but profoundly human. The Knights believed that strength flowed from honesty, from embracing instinct rather than denying it. Yet their downfall revealed the limits of raw power without grounding or purpose. Their flame burned bright, but without direction it flickered unpredictably, swayed by stronger wills and ancient darkness. To many, the Knights became a gentle cautionary tale. That power, no matter how pure its origin, requires balance to endure. And through that soft warning, the galaxy learned that flame alone cannot guide a soul through endless night. 88. The Limits of Strength. In the quiet years after their fall, scholars reflecting on the Knights of Ren often return to one central truth: that strength, no matter how fiercely it burns, cannot illuminate every corner of the soul. The Knights had embraced power as motion, as instinct, as a flame meant to sweep away hesitation. Yet even they were not immune to the shadows that lingered behind purpose. Their journey revealed that strength without understanding can falter, drifting like a ship without a star to guide it. The galaxy saw in their story a reminder that raw might, though compelling, is only one part of the Force's vast tapestry. And in this gentle realization, the lessons of the Ren settled softly into the galaxy's collective memory. 89. The Shadowed Path. Many who studied the Knight's legacy spoke of the shadowed path, the delicate balance between embracing one's darkness and being consumed by it. The Knights walked this edge with a strange serenity, listening to the Force not as an enemy or master, but as a restless companion. Their philosophy appealed to those who felt out of place in rigid dogmas, offering a form of freedom that existed somewhere between order and chaos. Yet the path was steep, the footing uncertain. Without inner grounding, it was easy to lose oneself in the quiet allure of shadow. And in contemplating their steps, wanderers across the galaxy pondered the thin line between liberation and surrender. 90. Darkness without direction. As tales of the Knights of Ren faded into myth, a final reflection emerged: that darkness, when left without guidance or intention, becomes a wandering echo, drifting with no destination. The Knights believed deeply in the power of instinct, but instinct alone could not anchor them when ancient forces tugged at their path. Without a purpose beyond the flame, their shadows grew unmoored, susceptible to any power strong enough to sway them. This gentle truth served as a quiet meditation for future generations. That darkness, like light, requires direction, grounding, and meaning to become something more than a consuming void. And from this soft understanding, the galaxy learned that even the deepest night needs a star to travel toward. 91. The Night Without Stars. As the story of the Knights of Ren drifted into legend, many philosophers described their journey as a night without stars, a vast stretch of darkness navigated not through guidance, but through feeling alone. The knights walked paths where certainty was scarce, relying on quiet instinct the way a wanderer listens to distant winds. In this metaphorical night, they discovered truths the Jedi and Sith often overlooked: that the Force exists even where light cannot reach, and that silence can teach as deeply as any ancient master. Though their steps sometimes faltered, they revealed the strange beauty of exploring the unknown with open senses. And in contemplating their long, starless night, listeners across the galaxy found comfort in the idea that even darkness can hold gentle mysteries. 92. The Weight of the Mask. For the Knights of Ren, the mask was more than metal. It was a companion, a boundary, and a quiet teacher. Wearing it, a knight stepped away from the noise of identity, from old names and lingering wounds. Yet every mask carried a weight, not of burden, but of responsibility. Behind the steel, a knight had to confront their truest self, unshielded by expression or excuses. The mask reflected nothing, yet revealed everything, offering its wearer a strange clarity. In removing it, even briefly, a knight often felt the cool brush of vulnerability return, reminding them that they were still human beneath the shadow. And through that gentle contrast, the mask taught them balance between the self they hid and the self they sought to become. 93. Flame in the Void. When philosophers spoke of the Ren flame after the knight's fall, they described it as a flame in the void, a small but persistent spark glowing within endless darkness. This flame symbolized possibility, the power to act, the courage to feel, the instinct to move forward, even when the path was uncertain. For the knights, the flame had guided every step, sometimes clearly, sometimes with soft ambiguity. And though their order faded, the image of that flame remained, a reminder that even the smallest spark can bring warmth to the deepest night. Listeners found peace in imagining it flickering gently, steady, though surrounded by shadow. And from that lone ember in the void, the promise of illumination drifted quietly into the hearts of those who contemplated it. 94. The Unquiet Heart. Beneath the armor, beyond the mask, each Knight of Ren carried what philosophers later called the unquiet heart, a restless stirring that drew them toward shadowed paths. This inner movement wasn't a curse nor a flaw, but a gentle ache shaped by longing, the desire to understand their place in a galaxy governed by immense forces. The knights walked through ruins and starlit deserts not to escape themselves, but to listen more closely to the murmurs within. That quiet tension became their companion, guiding them through choices that others might fear to face. Their hearts rarely found peace, yet they sought it with every drifting step. And in that soft, persistent unrest, the knights revealed the tender humanity hidden beneath their steel-bound silence. 95. Loneliness of the Wanderer. Though the Knights of Ren shared a brotherhood forged in shadow, Each member carried a solitude that could not be fully eased by companionship. Wandering the galaxy meant leaving behind attachments, old names, and the comfort of belonging to any one place. Their journeys took them through abandoned stations, forgotten temples, and planets where the night sky stretched endlessly, reminding them how small a single being can feel beneath the cosmos. Yet within this loneliness lay a strange serenity. It allowed them to hear the Force without distraction, to understand its shifting whispers more clearly than most. And in that vast echoing solitude, the nights drifted like quiet comets across the darkened tapestry of the stars. 96. Strength without peace. One of the gentlest lessons taken from the legacy of the Knights of Ren is the truth that strength alone cannot bring peace. The Knights mastered instinct, embraced power, and listened to the deeper currents of the Force. Yet tranquility often remained distant, like a horizon that recedes as one approaches. Their flame burned bright, but brightness does not soothe. It illuminates, pushes, urges. Peace requires something softer: reflection, release, acceptance. The Knights sought strength with admirable honesty, but they rarely paused long enough to find the healing that strength can offer. And in that quiet absence, the galaxy learned that true peace is a stillness no blade, no mask, no flame can create on its own. 97. The Unbroken Cycle. As scholars reflected on the fall of the Knights of Ren, one truth shimmered gently through their stories. The Force moves in cycles, endlessly rising and fading like tides beneath twin moons. Darkness may swell, but light always finds its way through the cracks, and when light dims, shadow fills the space in soft, inevitable waves. The Knights, in their wandering, embodied one chapter of this cycle, a moment when instinct and flame shaped a path that lay outside strict notions of good and evil. Though their order dissolved, their existence reminded the galaxy that the Force is never still, never singular. And in the steady turning of that eternal wheel, the memory of the Ren became another note in the galaxy's quiet, ongoing song. 98. Echoes of Ren. Even after their masks were set down and their flame faded into twilight, echoes of Ren lingered gently across the galaxy. These echoes didn't roar or command. They were soft, nearly imperceptible impressions left in the Force. A sense of motion, a flicker of instinct, a faint pull toward forgotten paths. Wanderers meditating on distant worlds sometimes felt these traces, like the warmth of a fire long extinguished, but not yet forgotten. These echoes carried no malice, only memory, a reminder of lives lived between shadow and clarity. They whispered of choices made in silence and of truths discovered far from crowded temples. And through these faint murmurs, the legacy of the Knights drifted quietly into the deeper currents of the Force. 99. Lessons from Shadow. Among all the reflections inspired by the Knights of Ren, the gentlest may be this: that shadow is not only a place of fear, but a realm of understanding. The Knights walked through darkness not to dominate, but to explore the parts of themselves the light could not illuminate. Their journey revealed that confronting one's shadow, calmly, honestly, without judgment, can bring clarity that rigid doctrines often overlook. To many, this became a soft, comforting lesson: that it is natural to feel lost, to wander, to question. The shadow is not an enemy, it is a mirror. And in that quiet, introspective truth, listeners across the galaxy found permission to breathe a little deeper and rest a little easier. 100. A galaxy returning to rest. As the story of the Knights of Ren folds into twilight, the galaxy exhales a long, quiet breath released after years of drifting flame and shadow. Worlds once haunted by their silhouettes now know a softer darkness, one filled not with fear, but with memory. The Force, ever patient, gathers their echoes like fallen leaves, letting them settle into the soil of history. In time, their footsteps fade, their masks grow still, and the Ren flame becomes a distant ember glowing faintly in the archives of myth. Yet even in their absence, the lessons remain. That darkness can wander gently, that strength can seek understanding, and that every path, even a shadowed one, eventually finds its place in the great, resting galaxy. And as our long journey through the shadows comes gently to an end, may the Force bring balance to your mind and peace to your dreams. Tonight, we walked beside wanderers of darkness, through forgotten ruins, silent moons, and the soft hum of the Ren flame. And now, as the galaxy settles into quiet stillness, you are free to drift with it, light as stardust carried on a cosmic breeze. If these stories helped you slip into rest or soften the edges of your day, remember to like, subscribe, and share which Star Wars era you'd love to fall asleep to next. When you're ready to keep dreaming, tap the end screen to journey into another bedtime voyage, another whisper of the Force. Beneath distant stars, another calm night beneath the twin suns. For now, rest well, traveler. Let the darkness cradle you softly. Let the light warm you gently, and let the Force guide your dreams. Good night.